After a relatively safe week once again in NFL Survivor Pools, we will get you ready for week 5 as we'll discuss and debate the 6 games you should be considering, and it's coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants. How you doing, Eric? Good to see
All
you.
doing great. We're already up to week 5. And it's cool, Michael, because there's a lot of people still in their survivor pool. So they are waiting for bated breath to see who we are going to suggest for week 5. And it is an interesting week. Look at the 6 games that we think you should be considering. Detroit is the biggest favorite, 10 points at Cincinnati. Buffalo and Arizona are at home, 8.5-point favorites over New England and Tennessee, respectively. The Indianapolis Colts at home, 6.5-point favorites over Las Vegas. LA Rams are 5.5-point favorites at home against San Francisco. And Minnesota, 4.5-point favorites at Cleveland. Michael, Cleveland always appears on this list as a team to pick against.
Well, their offense has been atrocious. I mean, they've had weeks where they could hardly, score any points, but they have a good defense. Their defense, from a yards perspective, is number one in the league. Did you know that? Some people didn't know that. They got a good defense, and part of it's their game, right? Their game plan is a slow game. Let's just take this game off. I'm not touching this game. I think we can stay away from it. But before we do, can I just put a little plug in for us? Please smash that like button. Comment in the comment sections. We want to hear from you. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. And then there's that bell icon for those that want reminders.
Yeah, we can kind of separate the games into 2 safe picks, 2, I'll call them intelligent, intriguing picks, and 2 picks that we think we're going to pass. And I agree with you. I'm passing on Minnesota. I just don't trust them, Michael. I do not trust them. And Cleveland at home with that defense does scare me. And I don't really trust the Rams that much against a division rival San Francisco team that always seems to give them trouble. But more than that, it's what I've said over and over. I am personally saving the LA Rams for week 9 when they have by far the best matchup. So just do me a favor. My suggestion, save the Rams. And then week 9, we're all going to sit back, relax, have a Mai Tai, and say, let everyone else worry about week 9.
Exactly. I know it's intriguing right now to pick on the Niners with all the injuries that they have. That team seems to be the most injured team from year to year. But yeah, they give the Rams some fits at time. Yeah, this game's in LA, but it's a Thursday night game. Save them for week 9. Enough said.
Yeah. Seahawk fan here. I'm not crying a river for the Niners. So we've narrowed it down now to just 4 games. Let's talk a little bit about, and I really want to get your take on, because you are the resident Las Vegas Raiders expert, of what is going on with this team. They started off looking so good in week 1 with my man Geno Smith looking like, why did the Seahawks let him go? And now I feel like maybe I know why. But Indianapolis is 6.5-point favorites against Las Vegas. Let's talk about first the Las Vegas team. Are they a team that you think you can pick against? Do they belong in that lower echelon? Are they dangerous?
Well, they're my team, and you know how it goes. When your team's not necessarily fantastic, you seem to be down on them. And that's what's going on right now. For me, I was pretty excited to see Gianti finally get utilized in a way that really helped the team out. But their defense is not that great. I know it's tempting to see what they've done a couple times on the defensive line. Yeah, they had a couple of moments of excitement in that game with the interception. But all in all, this defense is not good. And then you put Geno Smith in a spot where he has to perform, and he's had moments, yeah, where he's looked great, and obviously Pete Carroll knows what he has with him, but turning the ball over in tough spots. And I think sometimes he feels like he has to do too much because of the defense. And this Indianapolis team, it's a good football team. They really hung in there with a great Rams team. It's at home for Indy. Yeah, I'll let you talk a little bit about Indianapolis.
Yeah.
I think they should win this game unless Geno Smith, brings the best Geno Smith, and then there's a couple of breaks that bounce the Raiders' way.
I think this Indianapolis team is for real. I think Daniel Jones, he's calmed down a little bit after a ridiculous start in those first two games, but I think he's a very capable quarterback. And man, it looks like the old Jonathan Taylor back there. So they just destroyed the two teams they should have, Miami and Tennessee. And they beat a very good, tough Denver team. It was very close. And like you said, they played the Rams tough. So, um, most importantly and most intriguing about this pick is the fact if you look at Indianapolis, they have very little future value, right? So I think this is something, Michael, where you have to look at your pool and make a decision about, well, how many picks do I effectively need to make? My gut tells me Indianapolis is likely not a team that you do not want, that you want to utilize at some point during the year, and this is one of your best shots.
Yeah, I think that's right. We'll talk about some of the safer games in just a second. But if you're in a big pool and you might want to save that team for later and you want to, take a shot at Indianapolis, I think this is the spot to do it. If I were in a bigger pool, I think I would use them here. But I feel much better about some of these other games. Even though you say Daniel Jones is looking great, and this offensive line really makes him look great. There's a couple of ways to try and exploit him. I don't think the Raiders will be able to successfully do that, but some teams will be able to do that and make him look bad.
Yeah, really impressed by this young tight end they have, Tyler Warren, and they're very creative in using him, even letting him get a rush or two in there. So, all right, well, let's put a pin in Indianapolis and talk about the other alternative. If you were like, hey, I want to use. I have a lot of picks to make, and I want to utilize a team who I probably does not have much future value. Consider Arizona as 8.5 point favorites over Tennessee. Now, the big caveat is as long as you haven't already used Arizona. I think a lot of people have used Arizona in their pool, but if they're still available, now's the time. They First of all, as someone who's picked Arizona, and I know you have, it's no fun rooting for them. They're not a top team. They're not a horrible team, but they are not a top team. And Michael, tell me, what do you think the effect of losing James Conner, who I think is kind of the heart and soul of that offense? They got Trey Benson, who's a great young guy, but do you think that will slow them down at all?
Great question. I mean, obviously, in survivor polls, you're not just picking for a team, you're picking against teams. And I think this Tennessee team is the worst team in the NFL right now. And so that's a big part of why you should go with Arizona at home. I don't think the Connor loss hurts them in this game because Benson is perhaps a better back.
Are you noticing any improvement by Cam Ward? I mean, obviously he came in highly touted. We talked about the concept of being a rookie. The speed of the game is a lot faster. Are you seeing any improvement, or do you think that you know what it's going to be a longer project? He may be great one day, but probably not going to see it this year.
Well, I mean, I guess if you want to put him at risk, then yeah, I could see him being somewhat dangerous. But they haven't really done that. I think they've been smart. We don't want him to get hurt right away, so they're trying to do a more traditional approach on the offensive side and keep him as safe as can be with that not so great offensive line. So it's kind of hard to say. I think they're playing it safe, and so for that reason, he's going to be challenged because of the offensive line, because of the weapons around him, and because of their defense that's putting him in a spot where he's got to throw a lot.
All right. Well, this is a very interesting choice between these two, and we'll make final decisions later because I personally think Indianapolis is better than Arizona, but I think Las Vegas is better than Tennessee. So, kind of a tough call. I know that the lines makers are much more comfortable with Arizona. I happen to disagree. I think it is much closer between the two in this game. All right, let's talk about it. The Buffalo Bills are 8.5 point favorites at home against New England. I said I would pick Buffalo in the following 3 weeks as long as you can have the patience. They had two very juicy games the last 2 weeks, and they rewarded you with not only wins, but relatively easy wins where you weren't really sweating it out. Now they probably face the toughest of the three competitors. At home against New England, who are 2-2, not like they're world beaters. They beat Miami and Carolina, but 2-2 none the less. Look, I feel comfortable with Buffalo. They're a much better team than New England. The biggest reason I would stay away from them this week and possibly save them even later in the year is they do have a lot of future value because they're such a good team.
Yeah, no, agreed. I mean, they should win this game, but it is a rivalry game to some extent. New England has played them t tough historically, and this defense is not that bad. Um, I just used Buffalo recently, so they're not available to me in any event. But if they're available, I think you should feel relatively safe with this game. But I do like this Detroit game a little bit better, partly because of what's going on in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I just want to shout out Buffalo is hosting Carolina in week 8. I think Carolina is weaker than New England, so I understand the wisdom in waiting, but I also am fine, especially if you don't want to take the risk of Arizona and Indianapolis, and you've already used Detroit. So this is absolutely a viable game to consider. And Buffalo is relatively healthy, and you just don't know if that will stay the case. All right, let's talk about Detroit at Cincinnati. The biggest favorite, 10 points. Whew, Detroit once again looked so good last week. I will say, and I'll let you comment on this, I fundamentally feel more comfortable picking Detroit at home than away. And I know we got it right this week. Detroit is, in fact, away at Cincinnati. Um, Tell me about this game. What's your comfort level?
Yeah, no, you're right. Detroit certainly is better at home in the dome. And Cincinnati at times can be a tough place to play. But right now, the fan base is not excited about what's going on. So I don't know that it's going to be that challenging of place to go. It's just more the benefit that Detroit, has in being in their home environment. This Detroit team is healthy. It's capable. There's really not a lot of reason to get super nervous about, keeping Detroit from a future value perspective. Really, their next best option is not till week 12 at home against the Giants. They should that's a game you might feel good about, but that's just a long ways away to wait. I mean, look at all the weapons that Jared Goff has, how he's using him. This Detroit defense is playing well. And really, I don't even need to talk too much about Detroit. This Cincinnati team, because of what happened to Joe Burrow, and because of how they're using the run, this is the worst offense for using the run right now. I think Chase Brown is averaging like 2 yards a carry, which is pathetic. And part of that is coaching. And you heard Chase talk about the energy that the team has. Can that be adjusted? I think that they're down because of what happened to their quarterback. So yeah, Jake Browning got the win during the game that Joe Burrow went out. But since that, he's come back down to earth. I think you can bet against Cincinnati right now.
Yeah, they Browning as the starter has followed it up with a 38-point loss to Minnesota and a 25-point loss to Denver. Two teams I don't think they're as good as Detroit. So I hear you, and I think you have a situation where the defenses aren't respecting the pass, which normally they certainly would have to with Joe Burrow back there because they have some great weapons. But they're not respecting it, and they're not able to run. And then on the other side of the ball, Michael, that defense is just not good. It hasn't been good. It still is not good. And with the weapons that Detroit has, so yeah, I mean, wow. So let's just have a quick talk, okay? I know you picked Buffalo, but let's just suppose somebody had Buffalo and Detroit, and we're just now we know Buffalo has more future value. But if you just talk about winning this week, who do you think is more likely to win? Detroit at Cincinnati or Buffalo hosting New England?
Yeah, no, good question. I think the home and away plays a little bit of a role, but I think the rivalry situation does as well. And, New England just has a little bit of a better defense. I think that they can, it's not Bill Belichick running the team, so maybe not quite as capable on the defensive side of isolating certain individuals like they've done in the past. And this Buffalo team probably can, buck that, especially with Josh Allen. I feel safer with Detroit, even though they're on the road, because of what's going on in Cincinnati.
What is your official pick for week 5?
Grit, go with the Lions.
And I understand that pick a lot. But I think if you want to go out on a limb and know that you're picking a team that's less likely to win than a Detroit or a Buffalo, but you want to put your stand in now, I say I think my pick is Arizona. Sorry, is Indianapolis. Ultimately, I think your decision should be made by the structure of your pool. Great breaking down the games with you for week 5. We'll be back for week 6. Until then, take care, everybody.